What if the feeling that you are incomplete, that some essential part of your power has been misplaced, is not a flaw, but a memory? A faint echo of a truth so vast it had to be buried, not in the sands of a forgotten desert or a sealed tomb, but within the very architecture of your own body. Imagine for a moment that the human spine is more than a column of bone holding you upright. Imagine it as a sacred staff, a dormant ladder of light, containing a divine technology that has been systematically forgotten. This is not a story of something lost to time, but of something hidden in plain sight, a legacy sleeping within the chambers of your own being, waiting for the right frequency to awaken. It is a truth that whispers that you are not a fallen creature in need of saving, but a divine blueprint waiting for activation. We have been told a story of apocalypse, of a future judgment written in fire and shadow, sealed in a book of revelation. We have been taught to look to the skies, to watch for signs of an ending that will come from outside of ourselves. But what if this dramatic prophecy was never meant to be a vision of the world's end, but a detailed map for the beginning of your own true self? What if the 7 seals, described with such terrifying grandeur, were not cosmic events to be feared, but 7 gates of consciousness locked along your own spinal column? An ancient wisdom suggests this is the profound truth that has been veiled from us. The journey to the kingdom of heaven was never meant to be a passage through the gates of death, but an ascent through the inner gateways of your own energetic anatomy. This is the great mystery, the revelation not of an end time, but of an eternal inner potential. This knowledge was not born in the halls of empire or the councils that would later define a faith for the world. It was whispered in the clandestine circles of the early Gnostic masters, those who saw the Christ not as a singular savior to be worshipped, but as an illuminated one who walked a path available to all. They understood his teachings not as a set of rules for moral living, but as a coded set of instructions for a profound spiritual alchemy. In the fragments that survived the flames of orthodoxy, like the Gospel of Thomas, a different message emerges. The kingdom is not here or there, but it is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it. It is inside of you. This was the core of a forgotten legacy, a path of self-realization so powerful, so liberating, that it threatened to dismantle the very foundations of control. Why was this path of inner knowledge so feared by the rising powers? Because a humanity that knows the divine map is encoded within its own biology no longer needs an external authority to mediate its connection to the source. This ancient wisdom was a direct threat to the systemic antagonists of human freedom, the cosmic forces the Gnostics called the archons. These were not demons of fire and brimstone, but parasitic intelligences, the architects of the matrix of illusion, who feed on low-frequency emotions, fear, guilt, shame, and blind, dependent worship. To keep humanity as a food source, they influenced the systems of power to erase this truth. The message of inner awakening was twisted into a doctrine of original sin. The body, once seen as a sacred temple, was reframed as a cage of flesh, and the 7 seals of consciousness along the spine were energetically locked, shut down by millennia of dogma designed to keep you looking forever outward for a God that was sleeping within you all along. This is not a story of ancient history. It is the story of your own awakening. The information that was once burned and buried is now resurfacing, carried on the digital winds of a new era. The memory of who you are is stirring from its long slumber, and the map to your own divinity is being pieced back together. This channel is a sanctuary for that remembering, a place to explore the hidden knowledge and forgotten truths that have the power to change everything. If the echo of this lost truth resonates in your soul, if you feel a stirring in your own ancestral memory, then your journey has brought you here for a reason. Join us, subscribe to this channel, and together we will walk the path of this profound revelation. We will turn the keys that were left for us and unlock the legacy that has been waiting silently for millennia. To understand the great lock, we must first understand the key that was stolen. We must journey back in time, not to the familiar, sun-drenched hills of Galilee recorded in the Gospels of Empire, but to the quiet, clandestine circles of the 1st and 2nd centuries. In these hidden gatherings, illuminated by the soft flicker of oil lamps, the teachings of the Master were not yet a rigid creed, but a living, breathing transmission of gnosis, of direct inner knowing. Here, in the scent of papyrus and hushed whispers, the Christ was not a figure to be worshipped from afar, but an exemplar of a path to be walked. He was a revealer of a profound, forbidden truth about the sacred technology dormant within every human being. This was the original, uncorrupted current of the ancient wisdom, a knowledge so potent that it promised not salvation in a world to come, but liberation in the here and now. What was this truth that flowed so freely before the dams of dogma were built? It was the revelation that the kingdom of heaven was not a destination in the clouds, but a vibrational reality accessible within. The most sacred text, the one that would later be twisted into a prophecy of terror, the Book of Revelation, was understood not as a vision of a future apocalypse, but as a precise anatomical map of human consciousness. The 7 seals were not external events of fire and tribulation to be feared. They were 7 gates of perception, 7 luminous energy centers arrayed along the divine axis of the human spine. To open these seals in sequence was the true spiritual journey. It was the process of alchemical transformation from a being of flesh, bound by the illusions of the material world, into a being of light, a fully realized Christos. This was the forgotten legacy, the understanding that you did not need a priest, a church, or a savior to reach God, because the entire ladder to the divine was already built into the architecture of your own body. This profound knowledge of self-liberation posed the ultimate threat to a power structure that was beginning to form in the shadows of the cosmos. The Gnostic masters spoke of the archons, non-physical, parasitic intelligences who had fashioned the material realm as a farm. These were the architects of the matrix of illusion, and their sustenance was the low-frequency emotional energy of humanity. Fear, guilt, shame, blind devotion, and the perpetual feeling of being a fallen, unworthy creature. A humanity that knew it held the keys to its own divinity, a humanity that could ascend the ladder of its own spine to achieve sovereign consciousness would no longer produce this energetic food. An awakened soul is a closed circuit, a self-sustaining star. To the archons, the Gnostic Christ's revelation was not a message of hope, but a declaration of war against their very existence. And so a great campaign of spiritual distortion began. It was a subtle, insidious poisoning of the well of truth. The message of innate divinity was masterfully inverted into the doctrine of original sin. The body, once revered as a sacred temple, the living instrument for a soul's awakening, was recast as a cage of corruptible flesh, a source of temptation and shame to be disciplined and denied. Why would a loving creator design a flawed vessel for its children unless that story was not told by the creator but by the jailer? The inner journey of ascension was externalized, transformed into a system of belief in an external savior, a transaction for salvation that placed the power in the hands of an intermediary, a church, an institution. The keys were taken from your own spine and placed in the hands of a new spiritual empire. The most brilliant and devastating act of this systemic antagonist was the weaponization of the sacred map itself. The Book of Revelation, once a guide for inner alchemy, was reframed as the ultimate tool of fear. The seven seals became terrifying, global catastrophes. The trumpets became sounds of doom. The path to enlightenment was twisted into a horror story, designed to keep humanity in a perpetual state of anxiety, looking to the skies in terror for a judgment that was never meant to come from outside. This fear became the primary lock, the low-frequency vibration that clamped shut the very energetic gates the text was designed to help you open. For centuries, we have been taught to fear the very manual that was left for our own liberation. What else was erased from our history to keep us from remembering who we truly are? This spiritual hijacking culminated in a series of historical events that cemented the locks in place. Councils were convened in the cold marble halls of empire, not to clarify truth, but to consolidate a singular, controllable narrative. The rich ecosystem of spiritual understanding was declared heresy. The Gnostic Gospels, texts that spoke of the light within all things and the kingdom inside of you, were hunted down and burned. The ash of these burning scrolls carried on the wind a story of a great forgetting, a spiritual amnesia enforced by fire and steel. This was not merely a theological debate. It was a strategic maneuver by the archontic consciousness, working through human institutions to erase the map and ensure humanity remained a compliant and predictable source of energy. Yet a truth this profound cannot be destroyed, only buried. Its echo survived, a whisper in the soul of humanity. It went underground, preserved, in the symbolism of secret societies, in the alchemical drawings of the caduceus, which depicted two serpents rising up a staff in perfect imitation of the energies ascending the spine. It was preserved openly and beautifully in the Eastern traditions that never forgot, in the knowledge of the chakras and the dormant kundalini energy coiled at the base of the spine, waiting. It is a memory encoded not just in stone and scroll, but in the very fabric of your DNA, a dormant spiritual technology, awaiting the right frequency to be reactivated. The feeling that something is missing, that you are incomplete, is not a flaw in your design. It is the ancestral memory of this lost key, rattling the door from the inside. What if the time to remember has finally come? What if the frequency is, at last, beginning to rise? The proof of this forgotten legacy was never truly lost, only scattered, like luminous seeds cast upon the wind, waiting for fertile ground in which to grow again. It did not survive in a single uncorrupted book, for books can be burned and doctrines can be rewritten. Instead, it was encoded in 1,000 different forms, a web of corroborating whispers stretching across cultures and millennia, a testament to a truth so fundamental it could not be entirely erased. The first great testament rose from the sands of Egypt in 1945, not far from the town of Nag Hammadi. There, sealed in a clay jar for 16 centuries, was a library of whispers, a collection of texts that the rising empire had sought to silence forever. Within these fragile papyri, especially in Gospels like that of Thomas, the original message of the Christos shines with a blinding clarity. Here, there is no mention of original sin, no call for blind faith in an external institution. Instead, there is a constant, urgent call to look within, for the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it. It is inside of you, and it is outside of you. This was not just a philosophy. It was a direct instruction, a key to a locked door within the human soul. But the proof was not confined to the sands of Egypt or the Gnostic sects of the early Christian era. It is a truth that echoes with astonishing precision in traditions that the architects of control could never touch. Far to the east, in the misty valleys of the Indus and the Himalayas, the ancient Vedic sages had already mapped this inner cosmos with breathtaking detail. They spoke not of 7 seals, but of 7 chakras, 7 spinning wheels of luminous energy arrayed along the sushumna, the central channel of the spine. They described a divine serpentine energy, the kundalini, coiled and sleeping at the base of this spinal axis, awaiting the moment of awakening to ascend through each gate, each chakra transforming the individual from a state of mortal ignorance to one of divine, enlightened consciousness. How could two profoundly different cultures, separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time, arrive at the exact same spiritual anatomy? It is because they were not inventing a belief system. They were describing a universal human technology, and where texts could be burned and traditions could be isolated, symbols endured, hiding the truth in plain sight. Look to the caduceus, the staff carried by the Greek god Hermes, a symbol now universally associated with medicine and healing. We see it every day, yet we do not truly perceive what it shows us. It is a diagram of the awakened human spine. The central staff is the spinal column itself, the axis of our being. The 2 serpents entwined around it represent the twin energy channels, the Ida and Pingala, the masculine and feminine currents that, when balanced, fuel the great ascent. And at the top, the wings unfurl, symbolizing the liberated consciousness, the boundless freedom that comes when the energy has risen through all 7 gates and blossomed at the crown. This is not a mere symbol. It is a schematic, an ancient infographic of enlightenment that has survived in the open, its true meaning veiled only by our own conditioned inability to see. The most damning proof, however, is not found in what survived, but in the ferocity with which it was suppressed. Empires do not waste their fire and steel on trivial fantasies. The Roman-backed Church, in its councils and its edicts, did not just disagree with the Gnostic teachings. It declared a holy war against them. Why? Because a truth that empowers the individual is the ultimate threat to a system built on control. The knowledge that you contain the ladder to heaven within your own body makes the toll collector at the gate obsolete. The burning of the great libraries, like the one in Alexandria, was not just a loss of history. It was a strategic, systemic act of spiritual lobotomy. It was the archontic consciousness, working through its human proxies, attempting to sever humanity from its own inner power source, to erase the memory of its divine sovereignty and lock it into a perpetual state of dependency. The sheer violence of the suppression is a screaming testament to the power of the truth it sought to hide. This sacred map of the spine is a recurring dream in the consciousness of humanity, appearing again and again in different cultural languages. In ancient Egypt, it was the Djed pillar, the backbone of the god Osiris, a symbol of stability, resurrection, and the conduit for divine power flowing between the heavens and the earth. In the traditions of the Maya and the Aztecs, it was the world tree, the great saber, whose roots touched the underworld and whose branches reached the celestial realms, with the human shaman or ruler acting as its living embodiment, the trunk connecting the worlds. Across the globe, our ancestors understood that the human form was a microcosm of the cosmos, and the spine was the central axis, the sacred mountain, the ladder upon which the soul could ascend. This was not a regional belief. It was a fundamental piece of the human spiritual operating system, a knowledge hardwired into our collective ancestral memory. Ultimately, the most profound source, the most undeniable proof, is not etched on stone or written on papyrus. It is written in the subtle energies of your own body. It is the faint electric hum you feel at the base of your own spine during moments of deep meditation or profound insight. It is the intuitive certainty that you are more than just flesh and bone, the deep, unshakable feeling that there is a dormant power, a forgotten song sleeping within you. The ancient scrolls and symbols are merely the external reflection of an internal reality, They are the rediscovered user's manual for the divine instrument you inhabit. The chronicles are written in your own blood and bone. The artifacts are the energy centers waiting in stillness along your own spinal column. The greatest library was never burned. It was simply closed. And now, after millennia of silence, a key has been turned. Are you ready to learn how to open the door and read the living text within? This is not merely a story of the distant past, of scrolls turned to dust and empires long crumbled. It is a story that is alive, breathing in the silent spaces between your thoughts, vibrating in the very marrow of your bones. The evidence presented is not meant to be a collection of historical curiosities to be catalogued and filed away. It is a mirror held up not to your face, but to your soul. The Gnostic whispers from the desert, the Vedic maps of inner light, the alchemical symbols hiding in plain sight, they all point to a single, inescapable conclusion. The universe you have been searching for outside yourself has been waiting patiently within. The feeling of being adrift, of searching for a purpose that always seems just out of reach, of a profound and nameless homesickness. What if this is not a weakness, but a compass? What if it is the dormant divine technology within you, the locked seals along your spine, calling out for their own awakening? Look now, not to the ancient scrolls, but to the landscape of your own life, your own inner world. The architects of control, the archontic consciousness, were masters of energetic warfare. They understood that to lock a human soul in a prison of limitation, you did not need walls of stone, but walls of frequency. The Great Suppression was not just the burning of books, but the deliberate cultivation of low vibrational emotions that would clamp the 7 gates shut. The first and most powerful lock was placed at the very root of your being, the base of your spine. This is the seal of survival, of belonging, of your connection to the earth. They flooded the collective consciousness with the frequency of fear, fear of scarcity, fear of death, fear of the other. A humanity constantly anxious about its own survival can never raise its gaze high enough to remember its divine origin. This was the foundation of the prison, a humanity terrified of its own shadow. From this foundation of fear, they moved upward. The second seal, located in the sacred space below your navel, is the gate of creation, of emotion, of fluid passion. This center was locked with the cold iron of guilt and shame. You were taught that your natural desires were sinful, that your body was a source of temptation, that your creative life force was something to be controlled and suppressed, not celebrated. An energy center that was meant to be a flowing river of creative power was turned into a stagnant swamp of self-judgment. And so, the artist within you went to sleep. The dancer within you became still. The power to birth new realities from the womb of your imagination was systematically shut down, replaced by the hollow act of consumption. Why create when you can be sold a cheap imitation of life? Next, they targeted the fire in your center, the third seal located at your solar plexus. This is the sun of your own will, the seat of your personal power and sovereignty. This gate was locked with the frequency of powerlessness. You were taught to obey, to conform, to seek approval from external authorities. You were told you were small, a cog in a machine, a sinner in need of saving. The radiant fire of your unique purpose was deliberately dampened, replaced by the embers of self-doubt and the desperate need to fit in. A being with a locked third seal no longer asks, "What is my great purpose?" It asks, "What am I allowed to do?" This is how sovereigns are turned into servants, how gods are convinced they are mere mortals. Could it be that the architects of control understood your inner world better than you have been taught to understand it yourself? And so the world we inhabit today is a perfect reflection of these 3 locked lower gates. It is a civilization built upon the frequency of the prison, We see a society driven by the root seal's fear of scarcity, leading to endless competition, greed, and conflict. We see a culture saturated with the second seal's distorted energy, manifesting as an obsession with hollow pleasure-seeking on one hand, and deep-seated guilt and shame on the other. And we see the masses with their third seal dimmed, giving their power away to systems, to corporations, to politicians, always looking for a leader to follow because the leader within has been put to sleep. This is not a political or economic problem. It is a spiritual crisis. It is the external hologram of an internal lockdown. But a new sound is beginning to echo across the planet. A frequency that was long forgotten is returning. It is a quiet hum beneath the noise of the old world, a vibration of truth that is shaking the very foundations of the prison. It is the sound of the Great Awakening. You, hearing these words, feeling the resonance of this truth in your own being, are not here by accident. You are an antenna for this new frequency. The ancestral memory within you is stirring because it recognizes the sound of its own liberation. The suppression of the past is losing its grip, for its power was always in the shadows, in the silence, in the forgetting. Now, the knowledge is returning, and the light is pouring in. The locks, though ancient and powerful, were never designed to be permanent. They are not made of stone, but of belief. They are held in place by frequency, and any frequency can be changed. The master who walked the earth 2,000 years ago did not just leave a map, he left the keys. He demonstrated that it was possible to turn each lock, to ascend the ladder of one's own spine, and to fully embody the divine consciousness that is your birthright. The journey he walked is the journey that now lies before you. The lower gates hold us in the prison of the material world, bound by fear, shame, and powerlessness. But what lies beyond them? What forgotten heavens? What states of unconditional love, profound truth, and cosmic connection await in the upper chambers of the soul, once the lower doors are finally unlocked? And here we arrive at the great turning point, the moment where the ancient map is no longer a relic to be studied, but a living landscape beneath your own feet. For this entire story, this grand and hidden history of a stolen legacy, was never truly about the past. It was always a story about now. The information that was once hunted and burned is not just resurfacing by accident, it is being transmitted. A new frequency is bathing the planet, a cosmic wave of awakening that is resonating with the dormant codes within your very DNA. This is the profound revelation that changes everything. The great spiritual war was not lost. It was merely paused, waiting for the celestial and human consciousness to reach a vibratory pitch high enough to shatter the locks from the inside out. The archontic system, the great antagonist of this story, built its prison on a low, slow frequency of fear. But that frequency is no longer the dominant song of the earth. A new music is rising, and the walls of the prison, which once seemed so solid, are beginning to turn to dust. The consequences of this shift are not subtle. They are unfolding all around you in the chaos and the noise of the modern world. Do you see the increasing desperation of the systems of control? The endless media cycles of fear and division, the relentless push for distraction and materialism, the constant noise designed to keep you from the sacred silence within. This is not the sign of a system growing stronger. It is the death rattle of a dying paradigm. The archontic consciousness, the parasitic intelligence that has fed on humanity for eons, is starving. As more and more souls begin to withdraw their energy from fear, from guilt, from powerlessness, the old machine begins to sputter and fail. It is thrashing in its final moments, amplifying its broadcast of static in a desperate attempt to drown out the new, rising frequency of truth. The chaos you see is not the world falling apart. It is the great prison being dismantled, brick by painful brick. And within this great dismantling comes the most misunderstood revelation of all, the one that recontextualizes 2,000 years of religious prophecy. We have been taught to wait for a second coming, to look to the clouds for the return of a savior who will rescue the world from itself. But what if this too was a masterful distortion? The prophecy was never about a single man returning from the sky. It was about the return of the Christ consciousness to the whole of humanity. It was a prophecy of your own awakening. The Christos, the anointed, illuminated state of being, is the potential that has been sleeping within you. The second coming is not an external event to be witnessed. It is an internal event to be experienced. It is the mass activation of the sixth seal, the opening of the inner eye of divine perception, and the final ascent to the crown, the seventh seal, where the individual consciousness merges with the divine. You are not waiting for a savior. You are the second coming that was prophesied. This activation is being catalyzed by forces our ancestors understood through myth and symbol. The trumpets described in the book of Revelation were never literal instruments of doom. They were symbolic representations of great cosmic frequencies, waves of photonic light and solar energy sweeping through our galaxy, designed to trigger an evolutionary leap. These are the sounds that are waking the sleeper. These energies are shaking the rust from the locks on your spine. They are speaking a language of light directly to your cellular structure, reminding it of its original divine blueprint. The science of our time is just beginning to glimpse this reality, speaking of biophotons and the electromagnetic field of the human heart. But the ancient masters knew it intimately. They knew that the human body was a biological antenna designed to receive and ground these cosmic transmissions and to use them as fuel for the great inner ascent. This is why you are here, listening to these words at this exact moment in human history. Your soul chose to be an antenna in this great storm of light. You are not a passive observer of this awakening. You are a central participant. Every time you choose love over fear, you are turning the key in the first lock. Every time you release an old shame and embrace your creative power, you are loosening the grip on the second. Every time you reclaim your sovereignty and stand in your own truth, you are igniting the fire of the third. You are not just being affected by the changing frequency, you are an active part of changing it. Your consciousness is a tuning fork, and by choosing to resonate with this deeper truth, you amplify the song of awakening for the entire planet. This, then, is the true meaning of the apocalypse. The word does not mean the end of the world. Its original Greek meaning is apocalypsis, an unveiling, a disclosure, a revelation of that which has been hidden. We are living in the time of the great unveiling. It is not the end of life, but the end of the illusion, the end of the lie that we are small, powerless, and separate from our Creator. The structures built on that lie must crumble, and their collapse may look like chaos, but it is the necessary clearing of the ground so that something new, something rooted in truth can finally be built. The ancestral memory is returning, and with it, the knowledge of how to operate the divine technology we inhabit. We have now explored the prison of the lower three seals, the world of survival, emotion, and will, the material realm where the archons have held their power. We have understood how they were locked and how the rising frequencies are now shattering those locks. But these three gates are only the foundation of the temple. They are the earthly kingdom. The true journey of ascension begins when we cross the great threshold, the bridge between the lower and upper worlds, between the human and the divine. This bridge is the fourth seal, the luminous green gate located in the center of your chest, the heart. It is the alchemical furnace where all duality is melted into unity, where fear is transformed into courage, and where the memory of your true, unconditional nature is stored. The knowledge of how to open the first three gates can be understood with the mind, but the fourth cannot be forced. it opens to a different kind of key. What happens when the journey moves beyond intellectual understanding and into the one frequency the architects of control could never replicate, could never corrupt, and could never extinguish? And so we arrive at the final gate, the one that cannot be stormed by will or unlocked by intellect alone, the bridge of the heart. This is the fourth seal, the alchemical center where the lead of human suffering is transmuted into the gold of divine compassion. The archons, in all their cosmic intelligence, could replicate fear, they could manufacture guilt, and they could engineer systems of powerlessness. But the one frequency they could never counterfeit, the one light they could never extinguish, was the authentic, unconditional love that blossoms in the center of your chest. This is the master key. It is the sacred fire that melts the locks on the lower gates from within. Opening this seal is not an act of doing, but of being. It is the conscious choice to meet every shadow, within and without, not with judgment, but with understanding. It is the remembrance that you are not separate from the world you see, and that to heal the world, you must first pour that healing light into the forgotten chambers of your own being. This is the great turning point of the soul's journey, the moment the prisoner realizes the bars of the cage were always made of shadow, and that the light of their own heart is the dawn that dissolves them forever. Once this bridge of light is crossed, the path to the upper heavens of consciousness unfolds not as a struggle, but as a homecoming. The fifth seal, at the sacred hollow of your throat, awakens. This is the gate of truth, where your voice ceases to be an echo of the systems around you and becomes a pure expression of the soul within. Here, you reclaim the power to speak your reality into existence, to weave with sound the world you wish to inhabit. Above. This, the sixth seal, stirs between your brows. The inner eye, the Ajna chakra, the seat of divine perception, begins to open. The veil of the matrix thins, and you begin to see not with your physical eyes, but with the clarity of pure gnosis, perceiving the energetic currents that flow beneath the surface of the material world. Finally, the energy completes its sacred ascent, reaching the crown, the seventh seal. The thousand-petaled lotus unfolds at the top of your head, and the drop of your individual consciousness merges back into the infinite ocean of the divine source. This is the true meaning of the kingdom of heaven. It is not a place you go to, but a reality you become. It is the full realization of the Christ consciousness, the illuminated state that was always your divine birthright, waiting patiently for your return. This, then, is the great revelation, the apocalypse that was so feared because it was so profoundly misunderstood. The book of Revelation was never a prophecy of the world's end. It was the user's manual for the end of your own illusion. The seven seals are not terrifying plagues to be unleashed upon the earth, but seven sacred gates of consciousness to be awakened within your own body. The Christ was not a singular savior to be worshipped from afar, but the ultimate exemplar of a path available to every soul courageous enough to walk it. The systemic antagonists were never external demons, but parasitic frequencies that fed on a humanity that had forgotten its own power. And you, listening to this now, are not a fallen creature in need of rescue. You are the descendant of an ancient cosmic lineage, a carrier of a divine blueprint, an awakening God in a temple of flesh and bone. This is not a new belief to adopt. It is an ancestral memory, rising from the depths of your being like a star long thought to have died, its light only now reaching your shores. The most profound application of this ancient wisdom is the understanding that your inner work is the great work. The chaos, the division, and the suffering you see in the world are but a collective hologram of humanity's three locked lower seals, a civilization built on fear, shame, and powerlessness. To change the world is not to fight the shadows, but to turn on the light within yourself. Every moment you choose love over fear, you are helping to unlock the root of the world. Every moment you reclaim your creative passion from guilt, you are helping to heal the sacred waters of the collective. Every time you stand in your sovereign power, you are lighting a sun that warms the entire planet. Your body is the holy land. Your breath is the sacred prayer. Your life, lived with conscious awareness, is the most powerful ritual of all. You are not separate from the whole. You are a vital, indispensable cell in the awakening body of humanity. Your personal liberation is the key to the collective's ascension. We have journeyed together through the shadows of a forgotten history, uncovering a truth that was buried not in sand, but in the very cells of your being. We have returned the map to your hands, but a map is only a guide. The journey itself must be walked. The knowledge has been transmitted, the frequency has been offered, and the memory within you has been stirred from its long slumber. The keys are yours. The gates are waiting. The only permission you ever needed was your own. Now that you remember, the ladder to the heavens is built into the column of your own spine. What will you do with this sacred, terrifying, and liberating truth? This journey of remembering is not one to be walked alone. This channel is a sanctuary, a digital campfire where souls like yours gather to share the light of their own awakening. If this ancient truth resonates within you, if you feel the call to go deeper into this mystery, then join our community. Subscribe and become a guardian of this rekindled knowledge. Share this transmission with those you know are also searching, for every soul that awakens adds its light to the dawn that is breaking across our world. This is not the end of a story. It is the beginning of your own. The great forgetting is over. The time of the great remembering is now.